What's up, my broccolites? Today, I saw a video in my feed, and I thought it was really interesting, at least just based on the thumbnail alone. It's a video called "The True Worst RAILCANNON in ULTRAKILL," and judging by the thumbnail, I saw that the original claim was that the Malicious RAILCANNON is the worst RAILCANNON in the game. And I can understand how someone can come to that conclusion. I've already seen most of this video, but I will be watching this video with you guys and going over some of the evidence presented, as well as going over some counterpoints, because I don't necessarily think that this statement is entirely true. And at least if it is the worst RAILCANNON, it isn't the worst by far, is what I would say. So yeah, we are going to just go ahead and watch this video. This is my first time doing reaction content, so let's just get on with it then.
RAILCANNONs, ULTRAKILL's quintessential power weapon, like the BFG from Doom, and I haven't played any other boomer shooters. However, ULTRAKILL is unique because every one of the 5 weapons has free variations, effectively meaning you can have 15 weapons equipped at once. So why is the only one that I literally never use this hunk of junk? Now, in order to understand why the Malicious RAILCANNON, or
Okay, so that's one thing that caught my eye immediately. First of all, the editing is amazing. I can understand why this got so many views.
Hunk of junk.
But yeah, a big thing about using the Malrail. These long-range Malrails are not very good. This is easily going to show you, it's going to teach you why the Malrail isn't very good in certain scenarios. That being, at long range, you don't want to be using this weapon very much. That's why a lot of people made the switch to the Corgic Jackhammer who like nuking, is because the core follows your velocity, which makes Malrail nukes really, really strong because you get to be on top of the enemies that are kited to you when you start the nuke, so that those enemies actually receive the maximum damage that they would receive, right? That is a big part of using this weapon, is kiting enemies to a point where they're all clumped up and you get the highest damage because there is damage fall off, which they go over in this video. But yeah, let's just continue. In
order to understand why the Malicious RAILCANNON, or Malrail for short, is the worst RAILCANNON in the game, we first have to talk about the other RAILCANNONs. And this thing, we'll get to that.
Yes.
The first and main problem with the Malrail is the fact that it shares a cooldown with the other 2 RAILCANNONs. This is of course to balance the game. Speaking of balancing, you would think each RAILCANNON would serve a unique purpose, so you have to strategize what cannon would be best for the current scenario.
Yes.
So then I present you the chart.
Okay, let's look at this. Single target, I'm not sure what these little bars are. I'm assuming, okay, it's saying single target, AoE, single target, and AoE. I'm not sure if this top thing up here means anything in this line, but I understand what is being said here. They're trying to make the claim that the E-Rail is just like a Malrail, but better. There are a lot of reasons why that's not true, and I'll go over that sort of in the future, but I will start now by saying, here's one thing. He's going to bring up Conduction, obviously. Conduction is this big AoE thing. That's why this says AoE. And then there's obviously like Railcoin combos, which sure, right, but most people aren't doing Railcoin combos because they're really, really hard to do, to control all of your coins at once to get really good damage, unless you're doing like a really quick, like shortened version of it. But you know, the point is Conduction, right? AoE. So there are 2 things. Number 1, Conduction takes a lot of setup, okay? Conduction requires setup of nails, of coins, of magnets, of all these things so that it actually gets the AoE damage you need, which is something that the Malrail doesn't have, right? The Malrail has 0 setup whatsoever. You just drop core and you shoot it. And a big part of using the Malrail, in the fact that it's way faster, there's a huge macro play when it comes to using RAILCANNONs, right? They all share a cooldown, and an important feature of having all of the RAILCANNONs share a cooldown is that you want to use your RAILCANNON as early as possible, because as early as you use your RAILCANNON, you can actually use your next RAILCANNON just as early, right? So if I delay my RAILCANNON by 4 seconds, that means that I have to wait another 16 seconds to get my next RAILCANNON, right? But if I use it immediately, then I have to wait 16 seconds. But that means instead of waiting 20 seconds to get my second RAILCANNON, I'm waiting 16 seconds to get my second RAILCANNON. See what I mean? So that's why it's really important to consider the fact that the Malrail gets to be used instantly or really quickly, because in such case, you actually get to get your next Malrail or next screwdriver or next E-Rail a lot sooner because of how instant it is. Whereas with Conduction, because you're setting up so many nails, coins, and magnets, right, you actually spend a lot more time on the setup just to get more, arguably sometimes, more damage than the Malrail, which takes away from being able to use your next RAILCANNON even quicker. And there's also one small thing. Everything I just said about Conduction, that was all in theory. For those of you who don't know, Conduction is actually bugged right now, and any instance of Conduction cannot go higher than 2 damage. So it's actually not that great in this current patch. Malrail is a lot better for like AoE stuff. Very quickly, one thing I didn't mention in this rant is that Conduction also doesn't target flying enemies. It just does 0 damage to flying enemies. So enemies like Mind Flayers and Virtues and Providences and Powers, enemies that you would like to deal this great AoE damage to that are really threatening in your runs in like Cyber Grind or like just any level, like it doesn't do any damage to them. So that is a very, very important consideration when it comes to rating these 3 rail cannons together. Yeah, so let's just keep watching.
You see the problem? Problem number 2. The electric rail cannon is busted. I think all ULTRAKILL players can agree that the E-rail is the rail cannon you're using most of the time. Okay then, you're saying, what about the screwdriver? Everyone calls that rail cannon bad.
Yep.
Well, the screwdriver is really good at pinning down a target. This is constant damage over a long period of time, leading to a sustained blood output and very good style upkeep.
Yes.
Because of this, the screwdriver can kind of act as a survivability tool in the right situation.
And it's amazing.
And that's not even mentioning punching the screw, which leads to 13 total damage on a single
Yeah,
enemy,
15.
which can easily be comboed with a red jackhammer hit to deal 20 free damage, for a cost of a rail cannon charge and 1 jackhammer cooldown.
Yeah, and that's another thing when it comes to the screwdriver, especially in a setting like the Cyber Grind, or just any level really. What you want to do with the screwdriver is target the enemy with the highest health, or the enemy that's highest health / shiftiest. So like talking about like Powers and Mind Flayers, as well as Insers and Meepers, stuff like that. Especially enemies that are immune to friendly fire, like half of those. What I'm trying to say is, when it comes to using the screwdriver, targeting those enemies immediately gets you that value immediately, first of all. But then also, since you use your screwdriver immediately, your next screwdriver comes a lot sooner, right? Instead of waiting 5 to 10 seconds to use your first screwdriver, using it instantly, because it requires no setup, means that your next screwdriver isn't delayed by that 5 to 10 seconds. You know what I mean? So that's a very important consideration. The screwdriver is kind of in a league of its own compared to like the Malrail or the E-rail for that very reason, because the way it's used is just completely different.
So why can't the Malrail fulfill its role of AoE? Well, like the chart said, the E-rail also can do AoE, and in my opinion, it just does it better. The Malrail AoE on its own is pretty much just an instant red explosion. Not too remarkable. But everyone knows that the main way to use the Malrail is the core nuke.
Yeah, no one's doing raw Malrail almost ever.
And very little fall off. You're effectively guaranteed at least 10 damage.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm looking at these clips and it's all like these ranged hits. I mean, like, and that's a nice, like, I think they're using the core eject shotgun actually. Like, the nice thing about the core eject shotgun, if you know the timing, you're very like, you're fluid with it. I'm not very good at hitting nukes with the core eject shotgun. But a big thing about using it is that because you can drop the core instantly, it's actually more instant than it would be with the core eject jackhammer, which has a half-second delay. You can just pop that shit instantaneously. Instant nuke, literally like 0.1 seconds, like maximum, if you want to. And again, that it just adds more to the fact that you can get your next nuke a lot sooner because there's no setup required for that. All you need to do is just be in a place where a lot of enemies are, and boom, right? Just dash through the explosion. Projectiles that are aimed at you are going to get blasted back, right? And I'll talk more about that in a sec, yeah.
How did the explosion? Sounds pretty good, right?
Actually, I'll talk about it now. Because since we're talking about ranged nukes, a big thing about ranged nukes, whenever you use them, you actually don't deflect as many projectiles as you'd want, and you don't send them back to their sender. So like here, we'll take this actually clip for instance, right? So you see this soldier, if I had dropped a nuke on top of myself here, if I was this player, these projectiles would have gotten sent straight back to the soldier, or back to any enemies in this direction, right? Which would have probably killed the soldier. But since I'm doing it here, these projectiles are going to get blasted back in this direction instead, which causes you to lose out on that friendly fire and that damage. So yeah, again, ranged nukes aren't very strong. You always want to spend that stamina in order to avoid these projectiles being hit at you, deploying it on top of yourself where all these enemies are aimed directly at you, and these projectiles are being aimed directly back at them when they're deflected.
Yeah, it's great. Now let's look at the E-rail. First, the beam has infinite pierce, meaning every enemy you can line up and hit with the beam will take 8 damage. However, the main form of AoE is Conduction. By simply throwing some nails and coins in the mix, the Conduction aftershock can get really powerful. I don't exactly know how Conduction works in this game, All I know is when my game turns into a slideshow, I'm doing a lot of damage. And I can pretty consistently get conduction combos to get pretty much the same value as a core nuke. Now the difference is, conduction combos are incredibly easy to pull off. And even if I miss,
That's another thing though, like, you're investing charges of your overheat, you're investing, you know, nails from your blue nail. I mean, if Jumpstart can do all of that on its own, it doesn't need E-Rail. You don't need the E-Rail for conduction. It's great, but you don't need it, right? And then, like, you know, when it comes to the Malrail, you're not committing any cooldowns. Only cooldown you're committing is, of course, the rail cannon charge. But, like I said, with conduction, it's the overheat charge, it's the silver nails, it's, you know, all of your coins, your magnets, right? They are all static in wherever you apply the damage. And sure, you can get more damage that way, but having no coins, right, to deal with stuff like, you know, chargebacks, or to deal with, like, you know, towers or mind flayers that are chasing you on the sides of the map, and you want to get a quick, you know, default piercer shot in to hit 2, like, you lose out on the versatility by doing conduction. It's a very committal play. It's setup, right? So you actually spend a lot more cooldowns than you think doing that conduction play. And especially now since it's bugged, you actually invest a lot more for a lot less than you would with a Malrail.
I'm guaranteed at least a little bit of damage. Whereas core nukes require me to precisely hit a core in just the right spot.
You don't gotta do the ranged ones.
Setup. They are pretty easy to miss in the heat of combat, and when missing means a 16-second cooldown for all my rail cannons. That can be the difference between life and death.
Ah, that's sad.
And why would I go for all that hassle when the E-Rail is in a quicker bind slot? Still though,
but you
can have some utility.
I mean, I'm sure that was just kind of like an offhanded comment, but like also if you just put Malrail in your first slot, you'd avoid the problem entirely. Because those who don't know, rail cannons have a like 0-second swap time, unlike most weapons, which can't be fired unless their swap time is achieved. You know, with this core eject shotgun, you can drop the core instantly. With the Malrail, you can shoot the Malrail instantly. Again, instant nukes. So yeah, I don't know.
They are more consistent to do at a range, which isn't too terribly useful, at least in Cybergrind. But in campaign, it can be pretty decent. Alright, I haven't talked about this thing.
Here it is, yeah.
Problem number 3. Akita, please nerf the core eject jackhammer.
Please do.
This weapon is the single most versatile thing in the entire game.
It is.
Yes, I'm going to say it. This weapon is more versatile than the coin gun. Bite me. How does this relate to the Malrail, you may ask? Well, it can make nukes too, without using the rail cannon charge. Now, sure, these nukes are much weaker and require a lot of setup.
Yeah,
you know,
no one's doing
really
CTR
cool?
nukes.
If the community found a way to consistently do them. Introducing the RTC nuke.
Yeah.
A way that you can cause a nuke with almost as much power as the Malrail, with a 3-second cooldown. Now, sure, this tech looks pretty hard to do.
There's a couple things, right? So first of all, RTC nukes, right? They are slightly weaker nukes. They deal 12 damage at the epicenter, but their fall-off points are also way sooner. Like the Malrail, the radius being so big, there are several fall-off points where it does 13, 10, and 4 damage, I think I'm correct. And you can mostly get 13 and 10 damage, right? That really good juicy radius that you want most enemies to be in. But with RTC nukes, it's 12, 8, and 4, I believe, or 7 instead of 8. Point being is that it being a smaller radius and having weaker fall-off points, you need to be really close to your enemy in order to do this. And that's sort of the skill that comes with RTC. But unfortunately, as they brought up just a second ago, it has a 2-second cooldown, so it doesn't matter if you fail the first one. You just do it again, you know what I mean? And yeah, they said 2.3 second cooldown, and I think they round up to 3 seconds. It's 2. It's worse than you thought it was. Listen, I hate that it's that way too, okay? But being able to do those every 2 seconds is absolutely absurd, and that's why most people are calling it for it to get nerfed. Let's continue, because I do have an interjection somewhere later in this video.
And I agree, the timing is pretty precise. But honestly, once you get it down, I find them more consistent than a Malrail nuke.
And you don't even need to be
they do less
frozen.
Damage and a bigger fall off. But do you see how much I'm spamming these?
Yeah.
This does have the downside of you can't do it at a range.
Yeah, yep. And whip RTCs.
Actually, apparently that's a lie. You can do it at a range. Admittedly, this range version of the RTC nuke is a lot harder to pull off, but still pretty consistent once you get the timing. And if the timing or setup of an RTC nuke is too hard for you, you can just do a FUB. They have almost the same value,
but that comes at a weakness you can't dodge it.
self-damage.
Yeah.
Anyways, what about Malrail's last unique attribute?
Right, okay, yeah. So here's the thing. They're about to bring up, okay, you can core hammer boost. I'll let it play out.
Well, sorry to break it to you, but the core eject jackhammer also does that.
So here's the thing. The reason why I don't like this comparison is not because he's wrong. He's not wrong that the core eject jackhammer does everything that the malicious rail cannon does better, but there's also the fact that the core eject jackhammer does every other thing every other weapon does better. So it's not the fact that the core eject jackhammer exists that the Malrail is weak. It's the fact that the core eject jackhammer exists that almost every other weapon in the game is weak, right? That's sort of what really messes me up about this comparison, because I totally get it. But these nukes can't be instant, right? It takes about 1.2 seconds minimum to pull them off. Obviously, you can spam them, and that sucks. They're less damage, less radius, less fall off. The spammability is the problem of being able to do that, right? That's why most people push for like, okay, set the cooldown of the core to 4 seconds so that you can do all the cool stuff you want, but make it so you can't do it all the time, right? But again, like, this is better than Conduction. Your jumpstart has a 5-second cooldown. Your E-rail has a 16-second cooldown. You can do this 6 times before you get a Conduction pop, right? That 10 damage and then the AoE, right? And it's just obviously the better choice, right? As long as you have practiced it enough, it's always the better choice. And that's sort of the problem that I have with this weapon, is that it is better than every weapon, not just the Malrail. So no, I don't agree that the Malrail is the worst rail cannon. Maybe you could argue it is, right? But not for these reasons, at the very least. I don't think this is sufficient evidence to say so. It's currently definitely better than the E-rail, but the E-rail is bugged, so that's not a fair comparison. In Prime E-rail, you could argue that it is worse. But yeah, I mean, it still has all of the amazing properties of being able to hit multiple enemies, being able to do it so quickly, getting your rail cannon charge a lot sooner, because that's just the nature of Malrails. It's just very unfortunate. But yeah, let's let this play out.
With a 3-second cooldown. Seriously, this thing is busted. So because of those 3 reasons, is why I believe the Malicious rail cannon is the true worst rail cannon in the game. I still think it has some uses, mostly in the campaign, where there isn't enough space for an RTC nuke and not enough enemies for Conduction. However, I wouldn't say it's the worst weapon in the game. Subscribe if you want to see me yap about that one.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I would like to see that.
In conclusion, E-rail is busted, Screwdriver is underrated, and core eject jackhammer is better than the Marksman.
Yeah, great video. I think that it explains a lot of things. It definitely puts me in the shoes of sort of like, you seem to be an intermediate player, like past the beginner stage, but not yet into the advanced stage. You understand a lot of how weapons function, why they do what they do, what their purpose is. And I would definitely say that, just to reiterate, on the highest level of the game, CE Jackhammer is better than everything else that you can do. I mean, choosing the core eject shotgun, as strong as it is, you're just missing out on so much versatility. Every other rail cannon is pretty much equal to each other right now. E-rail's a bit weak. But yeah, those are my thoughts. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say. Great video. I will subscribe. There's the proof right there. I'm going to like this video. I love discussions like these. I want to hear what you think the worst weapon or weapons are, because there's definitely quite a few that are lacking, I would say. This has been my reaction, I guess, and I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.